Hello, people of the world. My name is Mark, and I'm a regular guy. I live in New York City, I go to high school, and I play sports. There is something, however, that sets me off from the rest. I travel, and I travel a lot. By 2015, I've been to over 20 countries, and I know not everyone gets to travel as much as I do. But that's exactly why I want to share my experiences with all of you, giving some tips on where to go and what to do along the way. Today, I want to tell you about my trip to Ecuador. Looking down from the plane while we were flying over Quito, which is the capital of Ecuador if you didn't know, we saw that the ground looked like one enormous patchwork quilt. Shortly after, we ran into some turbulence while landing in the airport that's located just outside the city. The pilot made a pretty smooth landing, well, considering the fact that the airport is surrounded on all sides by mountains. As we arrived at our hotel, we chose not to go out, but rather have dinner at the hotel. We practiced some of our Spanish while ordering the food, and, surprisingly, the waiter actually understood us, and the dinner turned out to be really good. Before I tell you more about our trip to Ecuador, I just want to share some fun facts about the country. First of all, the official languages of Ecuador are Spanish and the language of the Inca, Quechua. The average salary is about $360 a month. In Ecuador, foreigners, tourists, are called gringos. Many Americans come to live in Ecuador after they retire. And finally, in order to promote healthy living, the Ecuadorian government made an additional tax on fast food chains, making it so that eating at McDonald's is more expensive than, per se, buying lunch at Whole Foods. After we woke up the next day and ate breakfast, we headed to Ichimbia, an area in Quito that used to be very sketchy, but then got cleaned up by the government, making a great place to overlook the city. The view was incredible, from the statue of Quito's guardian, La Panecillo, to the mountains in the distance. A short bus ride later, we were at the main square, watching the president himself witness the change of guards. After we left the main square, we got onto the bus and headed to the World Complex, which has a towering monument that marks the point the equator runs through. Our next destination was 3 hours from the World Complex, our place to stay for the night. When we got to the hotel, Cabanos del Lago, it turned out that it overlooks a large lake with a view of the neighboring city across the water. The next morning, after we left our hotel, our first stop was a visit to a waterfall in Peguche. A 20-minute walk brought us to a waterfall where we went for a hike to get up to one of the 2 viewing points from which you can take photos. After the waterfall, we made a short stop at the house of a family who makes traditional Ecuadorian instruments. From there, we went to the Otavalo local artisan market. There was so much stuff in it, it was like a labyrinth, only without the Minotaur part. After escaping the labyrinth, we boarded the bus and drove to our hotel in Papahacta. We then went for a walk with the guide through the cloud forest. A cloud forest is pretty much a forest that's higher than the clouds. Pretty self-explanatory, huh? After the hike, we went back to put on our swimming gear and sat in the thermal pools that the region is so famous for. The next day, it was time for the real reason we came to Ecuador, the Amazon Basin. We arrived at the Napo River and boarded motorized canoe boats with roofs. These delivered us to a resort on the river, Casa de Suizo. They even showed us a food demo of the native culture, and we watched, in horror, as a man ate a live larva. After we got settled in and ate lunch, we put on our rain boots and continued to the canoes. The same boats now took us to another site, where we walked for about 20 minutes until we arrived at the house of a local family. There, we were told about all the traditions of their people and even shown how to shoot blow darts. The next day, we spent all morning exploring the rainforest, encountering many different species of plants and animals. We found out many facts about nature that could actually save your life. First of all, do not touch bullet ants, because their venom hurts as much as their namesake, a bullet. Another thing is that if you run out of bug spray, you can use crushed termites as repellent. Finally, we were also shown a mushroom that can heal a burn. We left the hotel in the morning and took a boat to the other side of the river, where we got back on our bus. We made a stop at a roadside fruit store where we tried different fruits. There was a large variety of fruits that we've never even heard of, like babaco or tree tomatoes. Next stop was another waterfall. The actual waterfall was a short walk from where we were dropped off, but the walk was worth it. There aren't many people who can say that they stood literally a foot away from an enormous waterfall. Soon after we arrived in the city of Banjo, we went to check out a tagua carving workshop. Tagua is often called vegetable ivory. Basically, it's a seed of a fruit that, when carved, looks a lot like ivory. When we finally arrived at our hotel, we had our final goodbye dinner together. Our last morning, we had a long drive, and along the way, we were given an opportunity to check out a beautiful rose farm. There, we were given a tour and learned a lot about different types of roses and different demand in different countries. That marked the end of our trip, and I'm happy to say that it was incredible. In conclusion, I want to share a saying that I first heard from our tour guide, and that stuck with me to this very day. The world is a book, and those who do not travel have only read the first page.